This week on Africa Weekly, we're in Mozambique, where 20 years after civil war, people are once again fleeing their homes. This time from what they describe as violent attacks at the hands of government soldiers. We'll travel back in time, in Cape Town, where a small group of scientists and conservationists believe they have brought an extinct species back to life. And we'll be serving up some traditional Nigerian cuisine, with a twist. But first, here are this week's top stories. It's been an eventful week in Uganda, with elections marred by violence, tear gas and the arrest of the main opposition candidate, not once, but 3 times. Tensions flared on Thursday as voters waited hours for polling booths to open, after ballot boxes and papers arrived late. At this station in Gaba, angry voters shredded their voting slips, saying they had only received ballots for local MPs and not for presidential candidates. As tensions mounted, riot police used tear gas to disperse frustrated voters. Dozens of polling stations were forced to reopen on Friday, but the second day of voting got off to a shaky start with the arrest of top presidential challenger Kizza Besigye, his 3rd detention this week. Egypt and the world bid farewell to Boutros Ghali this week. The former UN chief died on Tuesday, aged 93. The veteran diplomat had steered the world body during one of its most difficult periods, marked by crises in Somalia, Rwanda, the Middle East and the former Yugoslavia. 18 people were killed and 70 wounded when South Sudan government troops opened fire in a UN camp in Malakal. The camp is home to almost 50,000 people who have fled the civil war. The UN has said that such an attack against civilians and UN premises may constitute a war crime. Burundi has banned motorbikes from the centre of the capital Bujumbura after a string of grenade attacks by insurgents on motorcycles. The country plunged into crisis in April when President Pierre Nkurunziza won a controversial 3rd term, sparking street protests and regular killings. Thousands of villagers in Mozambique say they have had to leave their homes after violent attacks and rapes at the hands of government soldiers on the hunt for Renamo supporters.
Behind the hills, fear. Fear in the faces of these villagers who are fleeing political violence. In June 2015, clashes began again between government forces and Renamo rebels in Mozambique's western region of Nkondezi, more than 20 years after the civil war that cost 1 million lives. This woman escaped from her village 5 kilometers away. She protects her identity to describe the actions of the army without fear of reprisal.
They just come upon you on their walk or even outside your home and then they kill you. Sometimes they catch you, they put you inside a house and they set it on fire.
Not far from her home, Renamo reopened a military base back in 2013. The former Liberation, turned main opposition party, refuses to disarm its combatants and disputes the results from the most recent elections.
With the presence of Renamo, nobody complained. But as the army arrived, more and more people began to flee because they are murdering.
According to her, the army set fire to around 50 homes, including her own, in order to flush out Renamo supporters. As a result, over 4,000 Mozambicans have crossed the border into Malawi.
The army told us they are searching for Renamo's men. They tell the women to sit down and take their clothes off.
Meanwhile, Mozambican authorities deny any accusations and claim the province remains calm.
I can't admit that our defence forces are busy attacking our people. That is not possible. The Mozambican government has sent a team to Malawi to ensure that these refugee camps with Mozambican nationals truly exist.
According to him, the exodus is not unusual and could be a result of the drought. But Renamo accuses the army of having carried out the alleged atrocities described by the residents.
Where is the safety? Where is the order that these people say they are maintaining? This is pure fabrication. They go there to have revenge on the population.
The leader of Renamo, Afonso Dhlakama, has recently announced that he will seize power by March in half of the country's northern region, by force if necessary. Meanwhile, the residents of Nkondezi continue to ask themselves when they will be able to return home.
quagga, a partly striped subspecies of zebra, was entirely wiped out by colonial hunters in the 19th century. But now, a small group of scientists and conservationists believe they have recreated the animal on a private nature reserve just 2 hours north of Cape Town.
We are trying to breed back the quagga that became extinct through hunting many hundreds of years ago.
The last original quagga died in a zoo in Amsterdam in 1883, and critics are curious why anyone would want to resurrect the animal.
So it's an attempt to try and repair, if you like, an ecological damage that was done a long time ago in some sort of small way, and also to try and get a representation back of a charismatic animal that used to live in South Africa.
Over a period of 30 years, the quagga project has used selective breeding of plain zebra to produce an animal they say is indistinguishable from those that roamed the same plains centuries ago.
We do this through selective breeding. We actively go out, select ones with less striping and put them together in breeding groups. And there we concentrate the unstripy gene, and each animal has got less and less stripes every generation.
Others claim this is an unnecessary interference with nature and unlikely to produce a genuine quagga.
The DNA showed that it was, in fact, the same species as the plain zebra because it was identical. And so we will call it a variety, subspecies if you like, of the plain zebra, but certainly not a different species. If it had been a different species, then the whole project would have been scientifically not justifiable.
While critics question the process and intent, it is hard to argue with the result. The project currently has over 100 animals, with 6 of these animals in the 5th generation since the breeding program began.
A traditional Senegalese dish, reimagined. The quintessential Nigerian yam, modernized. In this new chic Lagos restaurant, the classics of African cuisine are being reinvented. In charge of these bubbling pots, Pierre Thiam, a pioneer ready to conquer the world.
We're certain the food of the future is African. There are so many products that haven't yet been discovered, and not just by African chefs. Western chefs are also looking into these new products, so Africa has a lot to offer.
A parade of potato pancakes, calamari and the spices of northern Nigeria. This is cooking for those expats returning home after years abroad, whose nostalgia for the food of their childhood is now coupled with the demand for quality.
It's kind of like African fusion. I mean, we've been to loads of different Asian fusion restaurants, Italian. We've never seen anything like this before. It's really impressive. It's kind of showing the direction that Lagos is going. It's becoming such a metropolitan city. And for young people like us, it's really exciting.
In this private kitchen, Ozos is slaving behind the stove. Her 12 diners are expecting a menu to delight. Samosas stuffed with escargot, pesto chicken and green curry, all with local greens on the side. Every meal a combination of traditional tastes and contemporary trends.
Sauté instead of stewing, pan frying, baking, grilling. These are techniques that we're seeing more and more these days. Yeah.
The diners here are all part of Nigeria's new class of foodies. For Nosa, who heads a culinary blog, it's about updating the image of local dishes.
We have like a growing middle class. I mean, recently we had like a big oil boom and lots of people had money, disposable income, and there's a lot of young people coming back, getting their first jobs, and they're looking for new things to do. So it's like these people, the market is seeing this as like an opportunity to open like new restaurants, trying different types of food.
It's the evolution of African cuisine. An evolution intent on challenging old recipes to suit new tastes.
Athletics Kenya Acting President Jackson Tuwai said this week that the country is on track to become compliant with the World Anti-Doping Agency Code and avoid being banned from this year's Olympic Games. Next week, we'll be on the front lines of a race war in South Africa, where the death of 2 young black men, allegedly at the hands of 4 white farmers and a policeman, has highlighted deep racial divisions in the country over 2 decades after the end of apartheid. That's all from Mesut Africa Weekly. Until next week.